Hello, it's lovely to be with you again today. Can you see the rainbow over my shoulder? That reminds us of the story we were thinking about last week of Noah being in lockdown thousands and thousands of years ago. And do you remember that the rainbow was a sign of hope for him? That the sun was going to come out and the rain was going to dry up and he would be able to get out of the ark and live on dry land again. Better times were coming, happier times. Today I want to think about an event that happened not thousands of years ago, but 75 years ago. This Friday, the 8th of May, is VE Day. And I wonder if you know what VE stands for. That's right, it's Victory in Europe. It marks the day when the Second World War ended for Britain and for Europe. 75 years ago, that war ended and peace came and people's lives changed. It was a little bit like coming out of lockdown after 5 whole years. And I've got some pictures here I want to show you. Now, here are my pictures. You might be able to see this top one up here. It's got the King, King George VI, and the Queen, Queen Elizabeth. And then on that side there is Princess Elizabeth, who is now our Queen, and on this side her sister, Princess Margaret. And in the middle there's a very famous man called Winston Churchill, who was the Prime Minister throughout the Second World War. And they're all standing on the balcony at Buckingham Palace on the day that the war ended. And then in the next pictures down below, I've got one here of lots of people in a street all gathered together, sitting around a table which has got an awful lot of food on it. And they were celebrating with a street party that the war had ended. And there were going to be street parties on the 8th of May this year to celebrate 75 years since the war ended. But of course, because of coronavirus, we can't do that. Here on the other side, we have pictures of some grown-ups all celebrating in the street in London that the war has ended. And they've got big smiles on their faces and they're waving flags, having a big celebration. And again, we can't all get together this year to celebrate VE Day. And then this picture at the bottom really interests me because it's a picture of a first-class stamp from 1945. And it shows a picture of children called evacuees returning home in 1945 at the end of the war. They were children who had been sent to live in other parts of Britain or maybe in other countries so that they were safe away from the bombs and the fighting. And my own dad was sent with his sister to live in Canada for the Second World War. He was 8 years old when he went. And he went to live with a family that he didn't know at all, and he went to a school that he didn't know anything about in Canada, and he stayed there until the end of the war, which must have been an incredible experience. So wonderful pictures there telling us about the celebrations at the end of the Second World War. We think a little bit at the moment, at the time of this coronavirus crisis, about people who lead us. We're thankful for those who lead us in the government and for our Queen. We think about getting together with our friends and families for celebrations, which we can't do at the moment. And we thank God for the people who have taken care of us and kept us safe during this coronavirus pandemic. But today we really want to think most especially about people who were in that Second World War and for whom 75 years ago this was such a special day, the day when peace began again. So let's stop and just try and imagine what it felt like, perhaps as a child, to come back to your home and to your mum and dad after 5 whole years of being away, or to be able to join together and have a big party, or to be standing outside Buckingham Palace and see the King and the Queen and their family and Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister, standing there on the balcony. So here's a prayer to help us to think about VE Day. Dear God, today we remember that very special day 75 years ago, when the fighting stopped and the people in Britain and Europe celebrated the end of the Second World War. We know that fighting always brings hurt and sadness and suffering. So help us to live in peace with each other and to play our part in making a peaceful world. Amen. I hope you managed to celebrate VE Day somehow and enjoy the celebrations, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Bye-bye.